Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is our second province-wide Get the Most Out of Your Website webinar. We have tourism businesses from across the province joining us today that include many sectors, several types of accommodation, attractions and activities, tours, food and beverage, wineries, distilleries, DMOs, and others. My name is Beth Sangera, and our webinar today is coming to you from the unceded Coast Salish Territories. I am a Senior Project Manager in the Industry Development Unit at Destination BC, and our unit produces workshops, webinars, and online tools and resources in tourism subjects for businesses and organizations across the province. If you're not already using it, you can check out Destination BC's Learning Center for a variety of these resources and notices of any upcoming webinars. So today, Kat Stearns is going to walk us through how to create a search-friendly website that drives users and actions and supports your goals, whether you have a website, whether you've had a website for years or you're just getting started. A couple of times through the session, Kat will pause to answer questions. Some questions may be saved until the end. If you have a question, please use the question and answer function at the bottom of your screen. Don't use the chat function, as your question might get missed there. We're not monitoring it for questions. But you can use chat to alert us of any technical difficulties or for greetings. Please type your questions in as you think of them, so they're ready in our queue, and our facilitator has time to consider them before responding. Please note that you will be able to see questions that other participants ask, and you can upvote on the questions. So if a question resonates for you, or if you have a similar question, you don't have to retype it, just use the upvote function. A private link for the recording of this webinar will be emailed to participants approximately 24 hours after the session. And I also wanted to mention that we'll be doing a survey for the webinar, which will only take you about 5 minutes to complete. But we'd really appreciate you doing so, as it gives us invaluable information to help us tweak and develop further sessions. And now I'd like to turn it over to Kat Stearns of Kat Stearns Consulting, who will take us through today's webinar. Thank you, and welcome, Kat.
Thank you so much, Beth. Thank you everyone for joining. Welcome. As Beth mentioned, my name is Kat Stearns, and I'm delighted to be your facilitator today as we walk through how to get the most out of your website. So the objective of this webinar is to really help you if you've never had a website before, you're thinking about building one, walking you through a lot of the steps and the building blocks you want to consider when building a website. Or if you currently have a website, we're also going to talk about a lot of the things that you might want to be looking at so that you can know what you want to improve and how you can be able to enhance it even further. As Beth mentioned, I will take questions throughout the webinar, but I really encourage you to also use the Q&A whenever something comes up. And I really like to make this as interactive as we possibly can. So we're going to cover a lot of information. So I encourage you to have a pen and paper ready to take some notes, and let's dive in and get started. A couple of just webinar guidelines to just remind you, we will be taking questions periodically. So after each of the different modules, I will pause for some Q&A. So use the Q&A function to help us to do that. But I encourage you as well to use the chat function if you want to share your own experiences, what's worked for you, or ask questions to fellow participants, so that you can also learn from them as well. So as mentioned, my name is Kat. I run a consulting company in the Fraser Valley in Mission, but I've had the pleasure of living in Northern BC and throughout the province as well. So I'm familiar with a lot of the different areas, and I've also traveled throughout the different areas throughout the province. So it's always great to see a lot of people that I've connected with on other workshops and other things that I've delivered on. It's always great to have you here. Delivering workshops like this is probably one of my favorite things, as I really love to share information, offer valuable tips, and I always love hearing from you how you've been able to take some of the learnings and being able to apply it in your business. So what I really want to get you to start thinking about as we start to think about your website is that more than ever, small businesses are getting online to connect with customers and drive sales. that especially in today's world where we're focused on COVID right now, that more and more people are needing to be in a digital space to conduct business. Social media can be great. There's a lot of other tools that are out there. However, the one and only digital asset that you fully control is your website. A lot of times people will often ask me, do I really need a website if I've got a really great following on social media? And my answer all the time is yes. When I first started in the digital space, I was working in the music industry. And I started out when there was MySpace and Facebook was just coming in. If any of you are old enough to remember MySpace, but where is it today? We had spent thousands and thousands of dollars working with labels to build up an audience on MySpace for different artists. Yet today, that platform no longer exists. So, Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, all of these platforms are great. And yes, they may be around for a number of years, but what if they happen to all of a sudden disappear? Or they change the rules on you? You want to ensure that you've always got a place that you're able to build an audience, you're able to control your message, and you are able to communicate what is important to you. So your website is the one asset that you fully control. You get to decide what goes on that website, what type of information you're relaying to people, and you fully control the ability of that website. So today we're going to talk about the 6 key elements to developing an effective website. We're going to walk through each of these elements. First off, talking about being goal-oriented, organizing your website, intuitive and functional design, creating useful and compelling content, and then lastly, we're going to talk about search-friendly websites, focusing there on SEO. We easily could spend an entire day walking through building an effective website. So we're going to touch a lot on the high level points. But again, if you want further answers or you've got questions, feel free to pop that into the Q&A and I'll do my best to be able to answer them moving forward. So let's dive into goal-oriented. Your website is your best salesperson. It is available 24/7 and it never asks for a raise. So you really want to make sure that when you are not able to be answering your phones or you don't have the staff and support to help you, your website can really do that job for you, that it's being that resource. Stats today also show that more and more people are going to the internet and to websites to try and get as much information as they possibly can, getting their questions answered, getting as much detail before they're even contacting a business. So can your website help to provide questions to the questions your guests are asking you and provide them a lot of information if they're not ready to actually give you a call? So you really want to think about the goal that your website has and how it's going to help your guests. As we go through these next couple of slides, what I also want to encourage you to do is to put on that customer hat. Start thinking about how your guests and your visitors tend to use the internet, how they're going to use your website. Because as you start to know more about them, that's going to help you be able to design your website to be more effective for them. So the number one thing you want to stop to think about is, why do you need a website? What is the objective of your website? What are you wanting to achieve? Is it brand awareness? Maybe you're in a situation that you used to market to a large international audience and now you need to focus on local. Or maybe you need to be able to communicate that your services have changed, that you no longer are bringing people into your business, you're doing curbside pickup. Or maybe you're wanting to just try and get more people to become aware that your business exists. Maybe you're wanting to focus on retaining visitors. Maybe it's focused on customer service. Maybe you're wanting to really have your website be that opportunity for lead generation or being able to take in bookings. Or maybe you are a website that's wanting to send traffic to other stakeholders. Your website might have multiple purposes, but the key thing you want to do is stop and think and go, what is the key objectives of the website? What is it that I'm wanting my website to do? So let's look at a couple of examples of how your website might achieve different goals. This first example here is Kelowna Tourism. The goal of their website is largely to bring brand awareness and to send people to their different stakeholders. If you go to their website quickly and easily, you can go through their website to find different things to do, places to eat, places to stay, and different ways that you can plan your trip. Throughout the website, you're going to get a really great sense of what Kelowna has to offer, and you can quickly and easily go from their website to other people's websites to be able to get more details and information. This is an example of a website where their main goal is to generate bookings. You can see that the moment you land on the website for the Red Tree Lodge, the very first thing that it's asking you to do is check for availability. They understand that a lot of the reasons why people are probably coming to their website is to see if they have available rooms for when they're planning their trip. So they're making that quick, simple, and easy for their guests to do that right off of the homepage. The other thing that they've done is they've created this what they call above the fold, meaning that if you're on a desktop, it's one of the very first things that you're going to see. So it's quick and easy for you to take action. This next example here with Whistler shows how their website is here being used for customer service. When COVID first happened, they realized that a lot of the inquiries that they were getting, both online and offline, was about what is going to happen with my pass. I still book? What does this look like? So they really made sure that their website had clear information and had all the details as around the guest refund request, what that would look like, able to have the phone there. Also, even when they weren't having COVID related content, they have the ability for you to quickly and easily sign up for email or text alerts. So they're really focused on understanding that a lot of their guests, before they come to book, they want to know what the snow conditions are like. They want to know if there's something that they need to be aware of. So they make it quick and easy for you to be able to get that customer service in the form of alerts via email or text. So these are just a couple of quick examples of how websites are being designed to help you to achieve the specific goal of your website. This last example here is about retaining visitors. This is an example of how you can be using content and information to provide educational details for your guests and customers. So maybe you're in a situation that your guests are needing to get more detail, that they're wanting to be educated, that they're not in a situation where they want to book right now, but they want to get more information. You might want to have your website provide a lot of resources and information where they can spend time learning and being able to be educated on what your products and services have. This is a great way to get people to stay on your website longer and to be able to build that relationship and that affinity with your business as well. So when you are looking at identifying the purpose of your website, it's really great to also set some goals as to what you want to accomplish. A lot of you have probably heard this acronym before called SMART goals. So the idea with this is to help to identify your goals and be able to measure the success that your website is having through using the SMART format. So this is looking at making sure your goal is specific, that you're really clear on what exactly it is that you're wanting to achieve. Making sure that it is measurable. If your goal is brand awareness, you want to be able to measure that by seeing and making sure that you are attracting more people or attracting a different audience in a different region or a different type of persona. You also want to make sure that it is achievable, that if maybe you're a brand new business and you have a goal to be the #1 ranking on Google tomorrow, that might not be fully achievable. You might want to set smaller goals, or you might want to set a larger target so that you can be able to work towards it. You also want to make sure that your goal is relevant. And what I mean by that is that it is relevant to your business. Sometimes in marketing, we can get caught up in what we call the gamification in marketing, where we just want to look and feel popular or look at how our competitors are doing. But you really want to make sure that your goals are relevant to your business. And then lastly, making sure that it is time sensitive, that if you're not setting a date for your goal, that it's really just a wish. So a SMART goal example could be that you want to increase the number of bookings in September by 20% compared to September of last year. So this is a really great way that you can be able to look at it to see if you're making progress, that you're comparing your sales from 1 month to a month previous in a previous year to be able to compare that over time. So this would be a really great example of a SMART goal of how you're able to start to identify to see if you are achieving the goals that you have. The other thing that you want to be thinking about as you're starting to plan your website is understanding who your visitor is. This can be really helpful so that you can be able to make sure that you're providing the content and the resources that they want. One of the things that's helpful is sometimes looking at that customer journey, understanding that as a customer starts to look at dreaming and planning their trip, and then to the time that they're booking and visiting, what are the different steps? What's the different information that they're going to be looking for? Understanding the different audiences and how maybe their customer journey differs, or understanding what's going to motivate them. Again, a really great example of this is if you look at an international audience, like say Europe. If a European visitor is wanting to come and stay at your business or is going to take part in one of your activities, they may plan that up to a year in advance before they actually come. Versus if you were maybe looking at a more local market, they might decide to plan it maybe a week, a day, a month before they're actually going to take that trip. So different markets might have different customer journeys, and being able to understand that is also going to help you make sure that you're providing the right information on your website. So what are some things to be able to look at how to determine if your website is performing? If you currently have a website right now, spending a little bit of time to understand what's working and what's not working can be really helpful. So spending some time in some tools we're going to share moving forward and understanding what pages are they going to right now? Are you generating bookings and leads? Where are those leads coming from? What's not working for your website or what is? Also understanding and looking at what pages are people going to versus what pages are they not going to. As marketers, we sometimes have these ideas of this is the content people are most interested in, this is likely what they want to know. But sometimes when we look at the back end of our analytics, we realize it's something completely different. As an example, if you have a gallery page on your navigation of your website, you may be surprised to see that it might be one of the most popular pages that people visit because people love to look at pictures. So stopping and looking and understanding how your website is performing will help you as you move forward. So some of these tools that can be helpful to help you do that. Number one is Google Analytics. These are free tools that Google has available that will help you to understand how people are using your website. It'll provide you details and information as to how people are finding your website, either from a social media platform or from Google search, or if they're coming directly. What pages are they going to? How are they getting there, from a mobile device or from a desktop? And what is the path that they're taking? So are they going from your homepage to a product page and then they're checking out, or are they dropping off? There's a lot of information that you can gather from this. As well, there's a lot of advanced techniques that you can use with Google Analytics that can help you to set goals and to really understand quickly and easily how effective your website is being. So a couple of key things, as I mentioned, that you can be able to look at is really understanding those search terms. There's also some details around the demographics of who's visiting your website, although sometimes those aren't as accurate just because we might not create a Google account that's truly accurate of who we are, or there might be multiple people in the household that are also using that Google account when they're searching on the line. But this can give you a really good understanding and a baseline to know and understand what guests are doing. So to wrap up our first section, it's really about stopping and identifying what are the goals for your website and creating SMART goals to assist that. Understanding who your audience is and looking at that customer journey, and understanding different audiences might have different customer journeys. And then looking at setting up tools like Google Analytics to help you understand how your website is performing so you can start to make educated decisions. Next, we're going to talk about organizing your website. This to me is probably one of the biggest and most important things for you to do. The number one thing is you do not want to make your website a scavenger hunt. Your visitors should be able to find what they're looking for within 3 clicks or less. If you've ever gone to a website and you're trying to find maybe their contact information or details about a product or service they have, and you're constantly clicking around, it can be extremely frustrating. Again, as marketers and as business owners, we know where to go to find the information that's prevalent. We know how many clicks it takes. We know exactly where to go. Your customer is going there for the very first time. You want to make it simple and easy for them. Think about laying out a roadmap so you can help lead them to the exact pages that they're probably looking for. One of the great ways to look at this is if you are starting to build a website, or if you're looking at redoing your website, is to develop an informational architecture, or IA, or also called a sitemap. The idea of this is laying out all of the pages that you're going to have and what is going to be the path or the number of clicks that they're going to need to be able to get to different pages. So laying it out so that you've got the information that's probably most important to you and to your guests front and forward as you start to drill down a little bit deeper. An example of what this might look is using Cycle City Vancouver. So with this example here, you can see that in the right-hand corner that they have two navigations. The bigger print where it says tours, rentals, repairs, etc., that's their main navigation. They've identified that these are probably the #1 pages that people are wanting to visit. When they're coming to the website, they probably want to know about these key things. But then they have that second navigation that offers a little bit more detail, where if you're wanting to know their reviews, their FAQs, buy gift certificates, or read their blog, they've got those details as well. But through their research, they've realized that people are typically coming for one of those 6 things that are listed below. Taking it a step further, when you click on the main tours page, you can also see how quickly and easily they've made it easy for their guests to land on that page and see the different tours that they have available, get a sense of the hours, the rate, so they can quickly and easily click on which one is the one that they're looking for and move forward. So thinking about how well organized your website is it easy and intuitive for your guests to be able to click and move forward through the website to find the information that they're looking for. When looking at planning your website, it's important to identify some of the common pages that most people look at. So again, if you're looking at building a website for the very first time, or if you're looking at maybe redoing your website, here's some common things you want to think about. #1 is you'll always have a homepage. That's just the main landing page that people will land on. This is typically one of the most important pages because most of the time it's the page most people land on. So you want this page to be set up to be a quick and easy way for people to navigate from that homepage to another page where they're wanting to get more detailed information. That may include a products and services page, an about page, or contact us. Other pages might include blogs or events, getting here, local conditions, what to do, itineraries, and the list can go on. So stopping and mapping out what types of pages that you might want to have is a really good step of really laying out that customer journey. Another thing for those of you that maybe have a website currently and you're looking at making some changes, this is a great free tool again that Google has to help you to optimize your website. So this tool is called Google Optimize that allows you to run these different A/B tests. How this tool works is that again, you are going to integrate this into your Google Analytics and you have to add a little bit of code. But then what you can do is that you can identify, say, a page that you have on your website, like your products page. And you want to know that if you happen to change the book now button from blue to red, are more people going to click on it? Or if you change your headline on that page, are more people going to navigate to that page and want to book? So you can use this tool without any coding, go in and you can make all of these changes and updates, and then you can run a test where, say, if you have 100 people, you can say that I want 50% to go to my current page that's live on the website, and I want 50% to go to this variant that I've now created where I'm testing a button or I'm testing a headline or different text, and I want to see which one performs better. From that information, you can then make, again, educated decisions where maybe now you want to go to your design team or your programmer and you can make those changes permanently on your website. This tool allows you to really make educated and test different changes on any part of your website without coding to see if they're going to make a difference before you actually make those changes directly on the site. So if you're unsure of how to actually get customers to take a specific step, this may be a really great tool to help you to make those changes before you actually go and pay to have someone do that on your website. So as we wrap up this last section here, it's really about stopping and creating a sitemap. So what is going to be the different pages and the steps that are people going to walk through with your website? If your booking page is 10 pages down, they have to click to 10 different pages to get there. You might find that a lot of people drop off because it's too many clicks and it's too much work. So is there a way that maybe you can get that to 2 or 3 clicks? And then use a tool like Google Optimize to test pages, content, and different elements to see how you can better improve that conversion rate. So at this point, I'd like to open up to the Q&A if we have any questions at all, Beth.
Well, Kat, you're doing an awesome job because no one has asked any questions whatsoever as yet. So we will pause again later in the presentation, but if anyone has questions, please type them into Q&A. Thanks.
Thanks, Beth. Good. Hopefully you're all taking good notes and enjoying everything here. Again, feel free to use the Q&A. It's always great to hear your questions. So saying that, let's move on. So next we're going to talk about useful content. This is about creating content that is valuable to your visitor, that's going to actually help them through either educating or inspiring them or moving them through that customer journey as well. So what is content? Website content is essentially everything on your website. It is the text, it's the headers, it's the images, the videos, the animations. Everything that you're including on your website is content. You really want to make sure that the content that you're using is useful to your audience, it supports your business goals, and it's also going to help to communicate what it's like to be there. It's also really important, if you can, to really have your content resonate with your target audiences. So, for example, if you are a business that you are really focused on families and that's who your main target audience is, include content that speaks to them. Have the language speak to them, have the images speak to them so that you're really being able to connect with your audience. So, a great example of what website copy can look like can be like this. What I want you to note from this is that if you are in a situation where you are wanting to create a lot of text, I want you to notice how Revelstoke has laid out this content in a way that makes it quick, easy, and scannable. Most people online, we are living in a time that we want that instant gratification. We want to find the information that we're looking for quickly and easily. So if you've got content that is very text heavy, being able to chunk it out, put it into bullet points, and make it look similar to this can be a nice, easy way where people might scan, see a headline or a piece of copy that really resonates with them, and then dive in and read a little bit more. A great way for you to also look at finding great content that you can include on your website is through a tool called Google Trends. This is a great tool that can help you to find different queries, different types of content and themes that are becoming popular, or to help you determine if people are searching for them. I will say that if you do have a large American audience, this is a really helpful and great tool. I don't find it's quite as robust when it comes to Canada. As in the US, you can get right into a specific region or a specific community, whereas in Canada, I find they're still more at a higher level where it's by province or in some of the larger cities. But it's still a really great opportunity for you to see how popular are keywords or different search terms. Are they trending up or are they trending down? And this can be a really great tool to help you find additional keywords, or maybe to help you determine if you need to jump on a new trend or type of conversation that's taking place online. So when you're looking at writing website copy, a couple of things that you want to think about, as we talked about, think about your ideal visitor. Really write for them and write for them in mind. Often what I sometimes like to think about is that I will imagine my one visitor that I'm writing for, and I'm pretending that what I'm writing on my website, that they are the only person that's going to read it. That helps me to really try and embody their thoughts, their emotions, their questions, and helps my copy to also be very personal to that target audience. You also want to focus on different keywords and phrases, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in some future slides. Using headers, bullets, and lists can be a great way to chunk out your copy and make it easy and scannable and more likely for people to want to scan and hopefully dive in and read. You also want to try and lead with the most important information first. This is great for your audience, but it's also great for Google and for SEO. And then lastly, and probably most important, keep your content fresh and updated regularly. If you happen to be temporarily closed right now, your hours have changed, you're offering curbside assistance, make sure that your website is updated to reflect that. That a lot of times people will go to your website to find contact information or check if you're open, and you want to make sure that it's quick and easy for them to be able to find those details. So in reviewing this, really take some time to review your website copy, making sure that it's going to speak to your visitor, it's easily readable, easily scannable, and as we'll talk about in the SEO section, focusing on some of those keywords because that's going to help you also get found in search. Next is talking about having your website to be compelling. I love this quote where it says, "The best marketing doesn't feel like marketing." And that's so true. When you land on a website or you are reading somebody's content online and it just makes you feel completely pulled in and you can really resonate with it, That is something that is happens by design. It's not by accident. So really thinking about how you can create compelling content. One of the biggest ways for us to do that is through visual storytelling. That more and more the internet is becoming more visual, that we're wanting to be able to look at pictures, to watch videos, and that sometimes videos and images are a much stronger way for us to actually communicate what makes our businesses different and how people can be able to learn more about us. When you are looking at creating visuals, it's really important to take a step back and create a consistent brand guide so that you're using consistent colors, fonts, and styles of photography. If you've ever noticed where maybe I'll use Instagram as an example, if you've scrolled through an Instagram feed and you can see someone's photo and you know instantly that that is ABC company's photo before you even read the caption or look at who posted it, that's because their branding is so on point that you know and you can recognize their content anywhere. So you really want to try and do your best to create a really strong brand recognition so that people, when they see material that you've posted, regardless of where it is, they know and they resonate with it quickly and easily. So a couple of things you want to be thinking about is you want to ensure that all of your visual design elements are aligned and are consistent. Sometimes if you're just getting started, an easy way to pull off of this is to use your colors on elements out of your logo. So if you've got different colors or different fonts that you're using, being able to do that. Using different types of brand fonts that are also going to help to maybe be used for headers and used for regular text can be great. And identifying the look and feel of your different types of images. So an example of how a website can really look and feel perfectly branded is this example here of Quail's Gate. You can see here that they're using the colors in their logo as some of the different call out buttons on their website. They've got use of fonts that are consistent throughout. They're using different types of fonts to help also tell where your main navigation is versus your sub navigation. And the images that they're using as well, they're going to align up with a lot with what you're going to see on social media. So you can see here that this is a really nice seamless execution of branding and how it can work across all of the different platforms. So when we think about visual storytelling, for a lot of us, we first off think images, but I also want to encourage you to think about video, infographics, graphics in general, GIFs, and so many other different types of visual ways that you can start to share your message. When we talk about photography, there's a couple of different groups of photography too that you want to think about. With Destination BC, we tend to break these into 3 groups that I'm going to just give you a quick overview with as you start to think and plan images for your website. The first group is the signature photography. This is your showstopper. For a lot of us, this is the image that is the first image that you're going to see at the top of your website. It's often going to be your header image on your homepage or on the top of any additional pages. This should really speak to your audience. This should be very impressive, and it should be one of your strongest image to make people just stop and look at that and go like, yes, this is exactly where I want to be. Next is looking at this experience photography. This allows you to create that emotional hook. It's also great where you can start to create these types of photography to really speak to that target audience. So again, if you're focused on families, start showing pictures of family doing or working with your business or enjoying your different activities. If you're speaking to couples, showing couples or showing or laying out different types of images to help speak to that audience. As you can see here that these can start to speak to different types of people. The one on the far right, where you have that person that's actually enjoying the water and the rain, that would probably speak to someone that's very free spirited, that's wanting to just get out and experience the world. Then next we move into our moment photography. These are zoomed in little fine elements that really help to define your experience. Often these are the ones that get neglected, but these can really speak to it. Myself particularly, I always love that middle photo with the apples. I feel like that photo is just so perfect that you could almost sense the crispiness of that apple if you were to bite into it. These photos are also really great to be used further down your pages or on your social media to really help relate to the senses and to really connect with your audience. So what are some imagery best practices? Number 1, make sure that your images are focused and are high quality. If you are looking for different types of images, Destination BC has a really great image bank that you can use where you can get access to over 5,000 images and video that are royalty free. You want to make sure that your images also complement your website, and you want to make sure that they are authentic. Using paid images through different websites can be helpful if that's one of the ways you have to go, but it can also make it feel inauthentic and really not to let people know what it's actually like to be there. Most importantly, make sure you have permission to use your photos. You don't want to go onto Google Images and just pull any image down. You really want to make sure that you have proper permission so that you don't run into trouble in the future. You also want to make sure that your images are formatted properly and understanding that there's two different ways that you size images. You've got the actual size of your image. So if it's going to be taking up the entire page or if it's just a small section, but then there's also the file size of an image. So often if we hire a photographer, they're going to send us images that are 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 12 megabytes. Those large files can actually slow down your website overall. So you actually want to reduce the size of those images by just copying or reformatting your images, getting them down to around a 500 KB size so that it's not going to make your website load slowly. The last point on here is using what we call alt text. When you upload a photo to your website, you often will see an opportunity where you can add a caption or a description or a section called alt text. That alt text is a little bit of information where you can describe what your image is about. This is important because if you're focused on SEO, Google will actually read that alt text, and that's going to help to tell Google what your photo is about. Images right now are becoming a really big part in search, and not a lot of websites spend the time to write their alt text. So what you want to be thinking about is putting in those brief descriptions. They just need to be a sentence long that talks about what this photo is about. Simple way to think about it is that if you had somebody that was visually impaired that went to your website and they couldn't see that photo, how would you describe it in a single sentence as to what was in that photo? That's the simplest and easy way to think about how you would write alt text. If you do that, that's going to really help Google to know what that photo is about, and it can help you overall in your SEO. A couple of resources for photography. The Destination BC Content Hub is always a great place. Also talking to your local DMO. A lot of different DMOs actually have their own photo banks or have photographers where they can help you out as well. Look at hiring a local photographer as well. One of the things that I recommended to a lot of people as well is that if you don't have a really big budget, get in touch with a local community college or university. A lot of them tend to have different arts programs or different photography programs. And as part of the curriculum, they have to prepare a project. And so you can often get really skilled photographers that are going to go above and beyond because they're just learning and they want to get that experience under their belt, yet you're not going to pay a really huge price like you would for some other photographers. You can also connect with user generated content, meaning if you've had guests that have posted photos about your business online, being able to ask for permission and be able to share those photos as well. Or a popular tool that a lot of different companies use is called Crowdriff, which can again help you to be able to source different images. Next is talking about video content. If you've never used video in your marketing, especially on your website, I strongly encourage you to be able to do this. Videos can really help to share an experience of what it's actually like to hire your company, to work with your company, or to have that experience. It speaks just as it's the next best thing to being in person. So it's such a strong opportunity. Some other examples of how you might decide to use video is using video to help build brand awareness, share behind the scenes, getting customer testimonials, answering simple Q&A from different visitors as well, how-to videos, or just sharing reels and highlights from different activities. A couple of best practices to keep in mind. Number one, keep it simple. You don't need to hire an extremely professional team to always get a great video. Using your camera can be a really great and simple way for you to get good content and at least get you started. Experiment with length as well, starting from 15 seconds to a couple of minutes. Number one thing is always make sure your sound quality is good. If you're speaking on the video, people will forgive if the video is a little bit blurry. They're not going to forgive if they can't hear you. And you also want to make sure that if you are using video on your website, that your video is not going to slow down your website. What I sometimes see are people that actually upload their video directly to the media files in their website and then try and post it that way. And that can slow down your website. There's different types of tools you can use to host your website, like YouTube, Vimeo are really great ones, and they're free ways that you can do it. Or you can also use a tool through Amazon Hosting, which is very inexpensive. And you can also customize it so it looks and feels like it's directly embedded on your website. You're not getting some of the advertising that you'll get through YouTube and Vimeo. There's also a lot of great tools that you can use from like Apple iMovie or Movie Creator that's right on your laptops, or going with other tools like Adobe Spark, Adobe Premiere, Wave Video, Animoto, or tons of other apps. I also recommend, if you have the budget, if you can, creating a brand video for your company. That's what we call evergreen content. It's that one video that really tells your brand story, and it's relevant today, a year, and hopefully 2 or 3 years from now as well too. Paying a little bit of extra money and hiring a professional company to take that video and be able to allow you to tell your story in a way that will be used on social, on your website, and for months or years to come is a really great way for you to be able to share your story. So as we wrap up this section, it's really about stopping and creating your brand guidelines. So really getting an understanding of what your brand's going to look like before you start creating. Review your current visuals and ensure that everything's aligning with your brand and with your visitors. Really looking to start and understand if your website's current visuals are helping to educate, entertain, or inspire your visitors. And if possible, start making a list of what are some of the new elements that you might need to have visuals for. So at this point here, I'm also just going to pause to see if we have any additional Q&As.
We do. And so the first question is, where are the royalty-free images? So this was referring to Destination BC's website, and it's from Alistair. And Alistair, there should be a link on the Destination BC consumer website, and it's through our content hub. So I'm going to look through that and send you the link, but you could look yourself as well. I'm sure it's not too difficult to find. Thank you. Okay, now Kat, the rest of the questions are for you. And the first question is from Gabrielle, and she says, we have an art gallery, and I always wonder if I should promote the gallery or the artists. How can I find the answer in trends?
So that is a great question. In your case, it may actually be better for you to use another tool that we're going to get to called Google Search Console. So I'll tease it right now and talk about it, but what that's going to allow you to do is that rather than looking at trends and getting kind of a global perspective, Google Search Console is going to tell you what are people actually searching for when your website comes up. Are they typing in specific artists' names? Are they looking for other types of art related content? And that's going to help you to get a better understanding. So we'll talk about that in the next couple of slides as well, too. Great.
Okay, and Esther has a question. What would you suggest as having a photo changing banner, so a carousel, on your homepage, or only one signature photo? Loading takes time and it's longer having the carousel rotating banner. Would you suggest it for other pages instead, or not at all?
This is the big question I know a lot of people have different opinions over. My short answer is it depends. A carousel can sometimes slow down your website depending on how it's designed. The second thing is that if you are designing a carousel, you really want to make sure that when you are picking your different banners, that you're thinking through the different messaging. So what I mean by that is that how someone's typically going to look at your website, they're going to land on that homepage. They're going to scan your that first kind of landing page of what we call above the fold, and then they'll typically scan through the rest of the page. If you have a banner, you want to make sure that if you've got a lot of text in that banner, or you have a specific call to action on each of those, there is enough time for that person to read it. There's nothing more frustrating than getting 3/4 of the way through reading copy on a banner and having the banner instantly move. That also being said is that if you have a banner that moves and people aren't spending enough time at the very top of your homepage, they might not notice and see the other images. So a couple of things that you could consider doing. One, you can, if you have the abilities and you're a little bit more technical or you have a team, setting up some parameters within your Google Analytics to see how long do people stay on that page there, whether you're actually looking at and seeing that banner move through, or do they quickly move and start to scan down the rest of your page so they're not seeing the banner, and testing to see if people click the banner links. The other thing that you can really be looking at doing too as well is if you realize that people maybe aren't clicking on the banner links, you don't want to use your banner as kind of your answer to automatically think people are going to sit there, watch the multiple banner slides, and click on those as their next step. You want to make sure that you're reinforcing that in your content below. So for example, if you have a banner and there's a lot of text on it, so it's taking 20 or 30 seconds before they rotate through, if you have more than 2 or 3 banners, they're probably not going to sit around and wait for that. They might click through quickly, but they're probably not going to read all of it. So you're not going to maybe get people in those last couple of slides to actually read and click through. So in summary, it really depends. Banners can be effective if designed properly with limited amount of text and really strong calls to action. If you're really trying to call out different key messages for different audiences or direct them to different traffic, but don't rely on your banner to kind of be the answer to easily direct people, because some people won't sit around to watch the banner or won't click the banner to move it forward. They're going to want to continue seeing the rest of the content on the page. Hopefully that answers your question too. If you have any further follow-ups, feel free to put them into Q&A as well.
So Kat, we have another question that's a two-parter, and then I think we should move on and take questions again at the end. So the first question is, how do you avoid the issue when uploading through YouTube of other videos relevant to the subject that can be highlighted at the end of your video, and sometimes they'll include competitors' videos? And the second part is, auto text, sorry. So I think she's answered her own question, but I wanted to put it to you in case there was an additional comment you had, Kat.
Definitely. So in your settings into YouTube, you can actually set it so that you can have a suggestion of what's going to play next. So one thing that I like to sometimes do is if you've got a video that you have on your website, creating that as part of a playlist. So if you've got that one video and then maybe you've got 2 or 3 other videos on your YouTube channel, creating a playlist so that they're all in the same list. And then when you're going into your YouTube settings, you can actually set them in there that you'll actually say recommended to play next, and it'll play the next video that's identified in that playlist. So that can help control what they're going to see after that video has been played. So that's one thing that you can do to be able to help you with that. Hopefully that answers that question. Great. So looking at the time, we'll move on to the rest of the slides because I do want to be respectful of everyone's time and make sure we get through all the content, but keep asking your Q&As and then I will stay afterwards to answer any of your additional questions. So next we're going to talk about intuitive and functional. Thinking about everything on your website must serve a purpose that helps your visitor to take a desired action. You want to make sure that it is easy for your guests to be able to know how to contact you, how to be able to navigate to find more information, and always having a purpose behind it. The biggest thing you also want to be thinking about is your responsive design. That more and more people are going onto mobile devices, whether that's a tablet or a cell phone, to be able to explore. The big thing is though, is that for us as marketers or as business owners, we tend to work behind a laptop or a computer. So we look at our website designs, we look at all of this information on a desktop computer. But if you look at your analytics, stats show from Google that 60 to 70% of people explore the web on a mobile device. So even though you're viewing it on there and a lot of us get our websites designed on desktop, we need to ensure that they will fit on a mobile device. So a couple of things that you want to be thinking about when you are designing for mobile first. Number one is focus on that homepage and navigation. Make sure it's easy for somebody that comes onto your homepage. They can quickly and easily on a mobile device take that next step. It's easy for them to create and complete tasks, fill out forms, and it's truly optimized. Meaning that if I'm going to click a button to email you or click a button to call you, it's quick and easy for me to do on a mobile device. One thing that you can do to test it, some of us, we might have it where we don't have the functionality to quickly and easily go on our phones and do this. You can actually use Chrome Inspector to actually test your website's capabilities on different types of devices. So if you are using Chrome as your website browser, within there, there's actually a little Chrome Inspector that you can actually go and you can be able to look and actually see how your website is going to look on different devices. You can access this by going to any website, going into developer tools, and then at the very top, you're going to see a toggle that's going to have a device tool. And then from there, you can actually pick different drop downs of different types of devices, from iPhones to Galaxies to tablets, to see how your website looks and functions and feels on a mobile device. So this is something that I strongly recommend that you do if you are really focused on mobile traffic. So what does functionality mean? It's really referring to ensure that your visitor is able to take those desired actions like we talked about. So you want to make sure when you are creating a device that it's simple and easy for them to complete a site search, fill out forms, make a booking, or use any of the other tools that you have. One thing that I find to be very helpful when doing this is actually seeing if you can find someone that can do a peer review of your website for you. By doing this, I like to find someone that ideally is not working with my current business or is part of a completely different organization, and saying, hey, we'd like you to just go to our website, navigate through it for about 10 or 15 minutes, and give us some feedback on how it functions. What can sometimes happen is that we'll find that what we think is simple or straightforward doesn't work for other people. So there's a lot of you on this call right now. I feel like this is something that if you're wanting to maybe do a peer review, maybe mention that in the chat and see if there's someone else that wants to do a peer review for you as well. Swap website URLs and swap contact information, get them to review your website, and you'll be really surprised to learn and hear sometimes what people find works or doesn't work, or what they like or don't like about your website, which you were unaware of. A couple of things to think about with the do. Really think about adding functionality that your customers want and need, not just because you think it's cool and the latest technology. You really want to try and minimize the amount of time that your customers have to spend in shopping carts or in forms. So trying to make that simple and easy. Focus on making it engaging and effective. Things you might want to really focus on not doing is having instant pop-ups. Those are those quick little pop-ups that might ask you to fill out information or submit details to get to be added to a newsletter. They can be effective, but you really want to make sure that you're using them properly. Also, if you have video on your website, please make it so that it does not autoplay with sound on. I have actually been very scared a few times going to some people's websites, and instantly I'm just bombarded with this huge loud sound of a video, especially if I'm on the website for a couple of seconds and the website or the video takes a couple seconds to load and I wasn't aware of it. And all of a sudden I hear this really loud sound. It can be a little bit startling. You also don't want to sacrifice user experience for the sake of beautiful design. Sometimes the best performing websites and the pages that convert the best are simple, basic designs because they are very intuitive for the user. So a couple of things that you might want to think about when you look at website functionality: identify your wish list versus your needs. Also thinking about how much content do you currently have that you're able to use versus what do you need to be able to create to help with that functionality. If you're thinking about either building a website or redoing your website, also thinking about what's the level of support and experience that you are comfortable with versus what you need to be able to shop out. Also really identifying what your timeline and your budget is if you're looking at being able to hire somebody to build you a new website. So over these next couple of slides, I'm going to walk through just some of the basic different types of website platforms that are most commonly used, so that if you are someone that's looking to either rebuild your website or start a website, you'll be a little bit more familiar. First off is WordPress. This is probably the most commonly used website out there. It has a lot of different functionalities. It's got an open source code where people can really customize websites to be their own. And so if you are looking to have a website doing some really more advanced things, this can be a really good tool for you. This is also great where many different programmers can get access to it, or you can also look at templates where you can start to build things yourself. So this is an all around great website platform if you're looking to do a lot of different things. Squarespace is another tool that if you are maybe a small team, you don't have a large budget, This can be a really great tool that can help you quickly and easily create some beautiful, stunning websites using different templates and layouts where you can just drag and drop and put details in. So this is a bit more of a cost-effective option if you're not wanting to hire someone to build you a website from scratch. If you are a business that's really focused on online sales, Shopify is really the key website that a lot of people use for having online shopping opportunities. Other websites allow you to be able to also have shopping capabilities, but if you're really wanting to have a really robust online store, Shopify really has mastered the whole outline of how to really create the best user experience when going through a shopping cart. So if that's your option, is looking at this. This can be a little bit more expensive though, where you're going to be paying a monthly fee in a lot of cases. So if you don't have a huge budget, this may not be an option for you. It's also very limited on some SEO factors and other abilities as well. It's mainly really focused on the user experience with shopping. Wix is another great example too of a very cost-effective website design. If you're looking to really build something on your own, again, has a lot of the drag and drop functionalities. So one thing you want to be thinking about is as you start to review your website, start to reflect on, do I need to redesign my website or not? These are some questions you might want to think about. Does my website provide value to my visitors? Is my website responsive and optimal for mobile uses? If the answer is no, I would strongly recommend that you look at updating your website. Google now indexes website based on mobile, on the mobile version. So if your website is not responsive, you definitely want to look at that. Also, if your website looks outdated, or if you feel like there's a lot of new products or offerings that you need to include in there. So the last section, and probably the most interesting to most people, is talking about your website being search friendly. Again, this is a very detailed section that we could probably spend an entire day on. The one thing to really think about though, and how I really feel it sums up SEO, is that Google only loves you when everyone else loves you first. So SEO and search engine optimization can be a really big, scary thing for a lot of people. But when really simplified down, if you create a website that people love, they're spending time on it, they're checking out different pages, they're engaging with your content, they're booking with you. If your website is doing that, Google will reward you for that. So how does search engines work? There are billions of searches that happen every single day, and Google has these what we call spiders that go out and scan the internet looking for new pages, new websites, or updated content. They move through the different pages on the website by clicking or by going through these different links and finding information that is available on the web. There's over 200 signals that Google then looks at and indexes, and nobody knows exactly what these are, but it takes all of these different types of information that it's finding from your pages, and it starts to rank them in information. Then what will happen is that, say for example, somebody decides I am looking for a restaurant in Powell River. So if I were to go to, or actually use the example here, if I were to go to Smithers Brewing, the internet, what Google is going to do is that within less than 3 seconds, it's going to start to index everything that it's looked at on the internet to say, if you're typing in that search query, what are probably the best result pages that I can show you? Google is very smart and it knows that what I might search for might be something different than what you are looking for. So it's going to try and customize your search results based on the person. When you type something in, the top part there is what they call your search query. And then below that is where you're going to find your organic listing. And on the right-hand side is what we call our Google business listing. So Google is going to index your pages and it's going to identify what keywords, what phrases, and how and when it should show your website compared to other websites on the web. So what are some of the key things that Google tends to look at when trying to determine where and how it should rank your website? Number one is having a fast load time. Number two is useful content, meaning that content that people engage with, they want to read, they're going to watch, and they're going to spend time on. It also looks at how many links that you have within your website that link to other pages and how many other websites link to you. It also looks at your page structures. So how your page is being laid out with titles, descriptions, images, headers, a number of additional information. It also looks at that information hierarchy of how your pages are being laid out, and it determines that higher up pages are probably going to be ranked higher than pages that are 5 or 6 pages deep. And then, as we talked about, really making sure that your website is responsive design. So a couple of things to just think about when we're talking about search engine optimization or SEO. This is a technique that's going to really help you to ensure that Google can easily understand what your website or individual pages are about. And there's a lot of things that can come into play with this. By really following some of these techniques, it can help to make your website more visible. It can also ensure that you're connecting with the right customers and help to hopefully push your customers through your funnel and able to convert them into either bookings or sales. So some quick high level SEO best practices. Number one, identify your keywords or keyword phrases. One way that I like to look at this is that each page within your website should really be focused around different keywords or different keyword phrases, not all of the same. Really start to focus on creating clean page titles, preferably under 50 characters, creating clean URLs, which typically means you're not having funny hashtags or exclamation marks or different characters in there. You're using just numbers and letters. Using title tags and meta descriptions. These are a little bit more like the coding details, but understanding that you're easily telling Google what your page is about. Your meta description is that description that actually will show up on Google search results, where you see that header and then the brief text underneath. You can actually tell Google what you would like to have show up there. And then, as we talked about, using those image alt tags and then using different structures like H1s, H2s, and H3s. A lot of the times that these get used as your headers for bolding and making larger text as part of the design element, but they're also really important for Google to say, this is important information. Lastly, never duplicate content. Don't go and find an article that somebody's written that sounds really good, copy it and use it on your own website. Google frowns upon that, and you can actually get penalized for doing duplicated content. So a couple of tools to help you as you move forward. Number one is using a tool called Test My Site. This site here is actually going to be able to test your site to be able to see how quickly your website loads. So the magic number is that Google wants your website to be able to load with under 3 seconds. So using this tool will help you to understand how quickly your websites load. One thing to note is that if you also are referring to your Google Analytics or other tools to test your website, different tools will give you different results just because they tend to measure slightly different things. So find one tool that works and continue going to that. This can be a really great tool because you're working directly with Google, and it also is going to give you some recommendations on how you can improve your site. This next one, as I talked a little bit about before, is one of my favorite tools for SEO, for search, or for really understanding my audiences is Google Search Console. Again, this is a free tool. How this differs is Google Analytics really tries to understand how customers use your website. Google Search Console helps you understand how search and Google like your website. So what this tool will actually be able to do is walk you through and help you understand what key terms is your website currently showing up for. What are people typing in and what are people seeing your page show up for, and are they clicking on it? It'll also tell you if Google tends to find any information that maybe isn't showing up properly in Google search or on a mobile device. So for the person earlier that had asked, how would I use Google Trends to maybe see if people want to know about the individual artists or about art in general? This would be a great tool to use and set up. You could go in here and you could look at your homepage and see what pages am I currently ranking for? Are people typing in artist names, or are they typing in other words? And you can look at each individual page, and that will help to give you a sense as to what people are looking for with that. As we start to look at putting this all together, we've talked about a number of different things. And it's important to also understand that in addition to just making your website work great on its own, that a lot of the other tools that are out there, that all of these will work together to help improve your website. So having social media accounts where you are linking to and including links to your website, creating a Google My Business listing, different types of media, search in general, TripAdvisor, Google Ads, all of these things eventually work together and point to your website. And the more information that you have online, where Google's able to learn about your business, you're starting to be able to link to your website, all of these together can help overall with your ranking. So in our final session here in closing, it's really important to review your website for SEO best practices. Test your website for that load speed to see how it's performing, and install tools like Google Analytics and Google Search Console so that you can help to learn and understand how your website is performing, both from a user perspective as well as for search. So for our recap, a lot of information we covered today. Number one, start up with what is the goal of your website. Identify a SMART goal. Make sure your website is organized so it's easy in the navigation for your visitors to get from page to page and find what they're looking for. Make it intuitive and functional. Ensure that your content is useful, compelling, and valuable. Focus on some of those key elements to help make your website search friendly. If you feel like it's very technical, the most important thing to remember is that you want your website to help support your guests. If people spend time on your website, Google will reward you. And always be testing. Things are always changing. What maybe worked a year ago might not work today, and it's always updating as well. So always be testing to see how you can improve. So at this point, I would like to say thank you to everyone for joining us. I would also like to open it up for Q&A for any of you that have any additional questions that you would like to ask. So Beth, I'll see if there's anything in the Q&A at this time.
Okay, Kat, we have one question actually, I'll just read the question. How frequently would you go over keywords and find out if they're still working for you?
Great question. I tend to do it at a minimum on a monthly basis. So how I like to do it is that I go into Google Search Console at least once a month. Again, it depends on how frequently I'm maybe trying to focus on certain pages or for the website. And I like to just go in there and kind of keep an idea and a track on things. So if you're really focused on ranking, you're really focused on your SEO, possibly looking at it monthly so that you can stay on top of things and be able to kind of gauge it, that can be helpful. Saying that though, sometimes it does take a little bit of time for things to improve and for you to get those updates. But I do like to typically go in and review my analytics at a minimum of once a month to help me to be able to do that. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Great. Any other questions?
At this time, all the other questions have been answered or an answer has been typed to them. So I don't see anything else. So unless somebody types one in quickly, we'll finish up. But thank you all for attending today. It's always awesome to listen to Kat. She's got so many great ideas and so much knowledge. I'll just check Q&A one more time and see if there's anything else there. I'm not seeing anything, so we'll say
wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. I also see that a few of you put in your websites and are looking to connect to do a site review. Fantastic. When we do these live, it's one of my favorite exercises. So even if you weren't able to connect to someone here, get a family member, get a friend, and just say like, hey, go to my website, walk through it, spend 15 minutes, tell me what works, what doesn't work, and you might be surprised in what you find. So best of luck to everyone. Thank you so much again. And thank you, Beth, too.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Thank you.